All right, so this here is a Benrus Type 1 replica. It's not a Benrus branded watch. It is a replica of their Type 1 model, which came out in the 1970s. It was a 1970s military issued watch. I did a little research on it, uh, and apparently it was pretty much issued this in the Type 2, which a Type 2 dial looked more like that, right? Kind of your standard military dial. That was type, they called that, and they throw that dial in there, it's called a Type 2. So this is the Type 1, and then they had the Type 2. So 1972 to 1980 is what I could kind of pull up on when they made these watches. Sterile. All of them are sterile. No writing on the dial. No brand. No nothing. Which I think is cool. I definitely prefer a sterile dial. It turns out. I'm kind of new to the whole watch thing. Although I've always had watches and liked them, but I had to replace this bad boy this winter. And what did I do? Well, I've gone down the whole rabbit hole of looking at stuff. So anyway, 1972 to 1980, and then they discontinued it. But in the meantime, other brands kind of started making, still kept making a watch because Marathon makes a watch similar case style to this, and then I think it's kind of referred to as a Navigator case too. And there's some other brands that make them. Now, the whole thing with these are considered homages, which is new to me this winter. All sorts of homages, they say. I disagree with that. If you look up the definition of an homage, these are not homages. They're Chinese knockoffs, is what they are. However, this one and maybe a few others are I would call them replicas, not knockoffs. There's a couple other brands, and then actually Benrus itself came out with these again here recently, and they are quite expensive, way beyond what I would ever pay for a watch. So after discovering this on a picture or something, I was like, oh yeah, that's definitely that's definitely the watch I want. Did a little research on it, poked around. Finally, I came up with an outfit that just sells on eBay. It's called Time Arrow. So this brand is a Time Arrow, and I'll get into that here in a second. But the dimensions on these are case width, and I measured it. Calipers, because you can pull up other dimensions online. But I measured it with the stem here. So it's 43.2 millimeters. And metric, because everybody does metric with watches, I'd probably prefer to do it with inches, but 43.2 case, side to side, and I included that too. And you can see that it's like a fraction of a millimeter that stem sticks out the side, so add whatever you want to that. I think that they actually consider this 41 point something or 42 point something case width, but technically with the stem, 43.2. Thick, 14.2 millimeters thick, and it's got a domed crystal and then also a kind of a domed case back there. You can kind of see that back in there. And that case back as well as sterile, nothing written on it. Cool, I like it. Lug width, 19.3 millimeters, so you can either use a 18 millimeter watch band or a 20 millimeter watch band. This actually happens to be a 20, so you go either way. So that's a lug width, 19.3, and then end to end, not necessarily lug to lug, but lug end to lug end is 47.5 millimeters. So 43.2 wide, 47.5 long. Not bad. Kind of medium size, large medium. And it probably fits most people, because this NWC, this is like the more traditional Vietnam era, 60s, 70s era, the watches back then, and World War II Korea, 34 millimeter width. It's kind of small, but it's still, you can wear it. And then also here is a Timex camper, and kind of same style there, military, kind of mil-spec dial, 36 millimeter without the stem. There you go. So yeah, great watch. Okay, so the makeup of this watch is it does have a sapphire crystal, which is cool, and it is domed, though it's not as domed as I would have liked. It does stick up, and it is domed. I don't know if I can get that thing to focus there. But if you look at some images from the old Benrus Type 1 and 2, I mean, they were like sticking up here kind of like a pretty badass. But you get good distortion on that crystal. It's kind of cool. It's thick, and it's single dome, so it's only domed on the top, not the bottom. I think that means that the bottom side of it's flat, so you do get that distortion, which I think is cool. It's kind of retro. I like it. No glare, anti-glare on there. Treatment that they put on some sapphire crystals. So Time Arrow is a guy. His name is Dr. John. I believe his name is John. I did message him a few times in the course of buying this watch and then after and whatnot, and very responsive. And he only sells on eBay. He does have a Instagram account, I believe. And I think there's only a couple videos of Time Arrow watches on YouTube, but they are for a Submariner model, not for this Type 1 Navigator model. So I figured I'd shoot a video, let people know about it. I mean, if you like that watch style, it's a pretty cool watch. It's very well done in my opinion. It's got a 60 click unidirectional bezel that's got good anyway, it's got good alignment and it's got good positive clicks. There is a little bit of minimal back play, as they call it, but not bad. It's not bad at all. I mean, you can definitely click it where you want, and it's even all the way around. It's not too tight. It's not too loose. It's even 360 degrees on that bezel. So he did well there. And I talked to him a little bit because I was like, well, what's the bezel material made out of? And he said, I believe it's aluminum, but it's an aluminum insert too. And he said, if there's any issues with it, let him know, and he'd send a replacement. Very, very upfront, very friendly. Like, whatever, I didn't expect anything to go wrong. I was just wondering what I was getting because I don't know anything about this Time Arrow brand, But basically, if you buy from him, he's got a bunch of other really cool. I think he does do homage watches. I think what he does is I think there's watches that he likes and he knows they're hard to come by, and when you can come by, they're super expensive, kind of like this. What he does is he does what he can to replicate it, because he did take a original Benrus case, and it's some factory. I'm assuming it's in China. He doesn't really say it, but I'm assuming it's some Chinese factory. He had them basically replicate this case millimeter for millimeter, same exact thing. And it's 316L stainless steel, which is cool. It's quite heavy. I'm not sure on the weight, but it's got some good heft to it. It's definitely a solid watch. Sapphire crystal, which is cool. Or showed that. Okay, and here's the interesting thing: is the case back and the bottom side of the case are sandblasted, right? Which is nice. And then the rest of it is, I guess you would say, it's brushed. It's not polished, but it's brushed. So it does have some reflection to it. And then the bezel definitely is a little shiny. And I'm assuming that's not going to be a real issue or it's not an issue anyway, but, for work and whatnot, I'm a firefighter, so I'm dirty all the time. And then my shirt is dirty, so it'll be rubbing on there. So you got dirt and ash rubbing on this all day. I'm sure that'll buff that down and maybe naturally sandblast that case while it's at it. And then the watch band that's on here is a MWC, which is a military watch company. They're out of Great Britain. And I have a few of their watches. I have another one actually in the mail now. Great. I'll do a review on those because I got that one plus another one. But I kind of got into watches this winter. But anyway, yeah. So the movement in this watch is DG2813. It's a Chinese movement, which I prefer not to buy anything Chinese, but what do you do? I saw this watch. I was like, yeah, maybe buy it, maybe eventually put something else in there anyway. Probably can. I have to change out the hands and, I don't know, something else, do some other things in there as well. So it kind of sounds like a pain, but because I'm not really a real watch guy. I've watched some videos, and I know that people do that kind of thing. But you can see those hands. I think those are called ladder hands. They're mil-spec. I prefer the syringe. If you're familiar with the Luminox hands, that's my preference. But this is exactly what came. So as far as I can say, from all the pictures and everything, I mean, he did a good job, like specking this thing out. The hands reached the minute markers and the hour markers, which is a big deal to me, and the second hand as well. Everything tracks correctly. Everything clicks along just like it's supposed to. No wonky movement. Holds good time. So yeah, I mean, if anybody watches and they're looking at timer watches, I mean, hell, especially for the money, you're getting a good watch. Like I said, the DG 2813, you have a choice. You can either get a quartz movement when you get these watches. He has the Type 1s, the Type 2s. You get the quartz, you can get this DG 2813, or you can get a Miyota non-hacking movement. Non-hacking being you pull the crown out. I think I've been saying stem, but you pull the crown out and the thing doesn't stop. Okay. Now, generally, all the watches I've owned in my life are Suntos. Okay, I do own I have these out too for kind of side by side comparisons. But here's a Casio G-Shock that I never wear, but it's a digital as well. And I've always had a thing for analog watches too. This is my first mechanical automatic movement, but this was a quartz. And the only reason why it's not working is just because the battery died. But the rest of the watch is dead too. But if I did put a battery in there, it would run. Definitely not the movement. It was never the problem with this one. I'll do a review on this eventually. But getting back to this, holds good time. Read a couple little write-ups online about this movement, and they're kind of mixed, but a lot of people say, like, if it's the DG movement, it comes from a correct factory in China, and they're good movements. They're kind of workhorse movements is kind of the word people use, and they just keep clicking along. So I thought, well, hell, we'll try it. Give it a try because I really want to watch. If you go and you actually buy a real Benrus, which they're coming out with, or they have been, they're very expensive. And there's another company, there's Paradive, very expensive. And I look at that watch and I'm like, okay, this one actually looks better. It looks more like the real thing. And that's another thing. So I kind of I was trying to justify getting something that was kind of more or less coming out of China. Well, there's one guy in the U.S. that's doing this, and he's not doing it for money, because if he was, he would be marketing it, and he's not. He just sells it on eBay, and he's got like a tiny little Instagram account with like 2 pictures, and he doesn't care. He doesn't advertise. He doesn't do. I haven't seen anything in any forum that I kind of researched this on. Just people spoke highly of the brand and of the service and of the watches. So I thought, well, let's give her a go. So that's what this is. So in a way, I think this is an homage from him, because I think he likes every watch model that he comes out with. That he really likes them, and he does his best to replicate it. And I think that's what he's done. He keeps the cost down. But I guess by putting that movement in there, you kind of wish that he would have thrown in a different movement. But I don't know. Maybe he couldn't spec the hands. Maybe he couldn't spec the dial. Who knows? So he did a damn good job, in my opinion, on this. And this is the GMT bezel, not the countdown diving bezel. So it's the first for me as well. So it's the first time I've ever run an automatic movement, and it's the first time I've ever had a dive bezel like this. I'm not a real scuba diver, though I have scuba dived, and I will again. Hell, I might even wear this watch. But so it's a little weird. And then I've always used these for bezel. I guess the only other watch I've had is this one until this winter that had a bezel on it. But I always use that for timing. I kind of like that, That's why I kind of like digital watches, because you always got a stopwatch or a timer on them or whatnot. But so whenever I get like a regular analog watch with no bezel, it kind of throws me for a loop. So, but you can use this as a timer. You just kind of have to, you got 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 15. You just kind of have to go that way. And then also it does track a second time zone. So, in this next year, I'll be going between maybe 4 time zones across the whole country, and I don't really need something. I can pretty much do math. The worst case is you're on the West Coast and you want to know what time it is on the East Coast, which I wouldn't. I could be on the East Coast and want to know what time it is on the West Coast, but then I just subtract 3. So right now I'm not an international traveler, and not many people are. But eventually, hopefully, the next couple of years. So yeah, this is an awesome watch. I really wish, the only thing is that I would like to change, well, possibly the movement, but it's doing good now, so I can't complain. It holds great time. And I run a stopwatch to it. I set it, run a stopwatch, and then I count the, I check it every once in a while against a cell phone or against something else, and it's holding good time. It likes to be worn. if you set it down, it could speed up, and sometimes it'll actually lose a couple seconds, but it always kind of gains it back and always stays kind of hovers around correct time. But if you do sit it down for an extended period of time face up, it will kind of speed up on you a little bit, but I mean no more than like 8 seconds a day, which is pretty good for an automatic as far as I know, as far as what I've seen, especially like a not a high end Mariner type movement. So, but the only thing is, I wish that it did have kind of like one of those higher traditional domes crystal. I'd even go for like that plexiglass old school style, like what these guys have, because they're domed a little bit, but kind of box dome and a true dome. But if you threw a bezel on that one, it wouldn't stick up any higher than this. But some of those old Benruses that look like they stuck up quite a bit, like an extra millimeter, which would be cool. But hey, I'd go for that even if it was plexiglass. But this is sapphire, so theoretically it shouldn't scratch. So for the price, $250, I don't think you can go wrong, because he does regulate these watches somehow. It's not like he just sends these out the door. He has them set, and they do run correctly. The thing came from Florida, and I'm Mountain Time Zone, and I'm sorry, I just got a text message, but yeah, it sort of holds really good time. I can't remember where I was at with that. All right. Well, that pretty much does it. If anybody's got any questions or whatnot, you can put it in the comments, or hopefully I didn't forget to add anything and it wasn't too convoluted. You'll have a good day. Bye.